Since Spider-Man is universally loved, you'd assume comics fans know everything there is to know about him. The first supervillain he faced, his lesser-known stories, what Sam Raimi would have done if he made Spider-Man 4, and so on and so forth. However, there are some really basic questions about Spider-Man that even the Josh Browns of this world couldn't tell you. If you ask 100 Marvel fans who Peter Parker's first love was, I guarantee 99% of them will get it wrong, and 60% of the time, I'm right every time. Even if you've seen every movie and love the games, there are still things about Spidey that you're probably a little lost on. So, I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are 10 Spider-Man questions that always confused you. Number 10. Just why are his villains animal-themed? Over the years, Spider-Man has regularly fought the Chameleon, Dr. Octopus, Lizard, Beetle, Rhino, Scorpion, and Vulture. What are the odds that so many of his supervillains would be animal-themed? At first, you would assume that it's probably a simple gimmick. No need to overanalyze it, right? Well, maybe there is. There is an actual answer, and it's way more complicated than you would imagine. A man with spider powers called Ezekiel Sims informed Peter Parker that he is a totem. In Native American mythology, tribesmen built totem poles made of a stack of animals to draw power from them. The poles are stacked so the animal at the top is the strongest and the one at the bottom is the weakest. Since Spider-Man is one of the world's greatest superheroes, he is considered a top totem. Lower totems, like Rhino, Scorpion, and Vulture, are instinctively drawn to the web slinger to knock him off his pedestal. Number 9. Why don't his webs go off when he's fighting? After obtaining his spider powers, Peter Parker built twin web shooters to swing around the city. These devices are worn on his wrist and can shoot strands of web fluid at high pressure. They are extremely sticky but durable enough to lift several tons. Spidey has battled a bajillion baddies over the years, give or take, and yet his web shooters have never gone off by accident in mid-fight. Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee offered a very reasonable explanation as to why this has never happened. Spider-Man's web shooters don't just activate when he closes his hands. The tech is pressure sensitive. He designed the web shooter so that they only fire a web when he taps a button in the palm of his hand twice with his middle finger and ring finger. He made them this way so the web shooters can't go off accidentally when he makes a fist during a fight. Number 8. How strong is Spider-Man really? After being bitten by an irradiated arachnid, Spider-Man obtained the proportional strength of a spider. Because of this, Spider-Man can lift 20 tons, which is the weight of a fully loaded bus. In Spider-Man Annual number 36, he demonstrated that he can hurl a semi-truck with little effort. He may come across as the underdog in battle, but Spider-Man is twice as strong as heavy hitters like the Green Goblin or Venom. This may surprise you since he sometimes struggles while fighting criminals with no superpowers. The reason why this happens is because Spider-Man is terrified he might kill someone if he hits them at full force. He can easily knock out a human with a slight tap to the head. Apart from when he fights ludicrously strong villains like Carnage or Marlin, Spider-Man will never use his full power in battle. Number 7. Who was Peter Parker's first girlfriend? Despite the fact that Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson have been considered Parker's two main lovers in his life, neither one of them was his first love. The first woman he ever loved and dated was, no, it wasn't the cookie girl from Spider-Man 3, it was Betty Brant. Betty debuted in Amazing Spider-Man number 4, 3 years before Gwen Stacy and MJ appeared on the scene. Parker was instantly won over by Brant after seeing her defy their boss, J. Jonah Jameson Jr., as she grew tired of his slanted stories on Spider-Man. When Brant saw how caring Parker was to his Aunt May, they started dating shortly thereafter. The pair didn't work out in the end, and so Brant dated Ned Leeds, and they lived happily ever after. Number 6. What was Norman Osborn doing after he supposedly died? The most infamous moment in Spider-Man's history is when the Green Goblin hurled Gwen Stacy off a bridge, killing her after Spider-Man tried to web her back to safety. In the following issue, Goblin died when he clumsily impaled himself on his glider. Although death is a mild inconvenience in comics these days, people forget that Norman was dead for almost 25 years in our time. But how did he survive that whole impaling thing in the first place? Well, the formula that turned Osborn into the Goblin also gave him a healing factor, which allowed him to survive his impalement. When he awoke in the morgue, he killed a beggar and had him buried in Osborn's place so no one would know his body was missing. He fled to Europe and joined the Scryers. Scryers? A cult that manipulates world events behind the shadows. Over the years, Osborn worked his way up until he was leader of the group. But desperate for revenge against Spider-Man, Osborn orchestrated several schemes to destroy his nemesis's life. After his plans failed, Osborn decided to take a more direct approach. He returned to America and reprised his role as the Green Goblin, where he has continued to make Parker's life hell ever since. Number 5. What happened to Peter Parker's family? In Spider-Man's debut, the titular character was referred to as an orphan since his parents, Richard and Mary Parker, died in a plane crash. For years, it was assumed that the Parkers' demise was a tragic accident. Years later, Peter Parker learned his parents were CIA operatives and agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When the Parkers were assigned to take down a terrorist group in Algeria, the Red Skull ordered an assassin to blow up their plane. However, Richard and Mary's lifestyle wasn't the only family secret they kept from their son. It turns out that Peter Parker has a sister. Before his parents were murdered, Mary birthed another child called Teresa. Since her parents worked with S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury took Teresa in as an agent when she came of age. That's indoctrination, isn't it? Well, when Teresa learned that a group of criminals were planning to kill her brother, she rescued him and admitted that she was his long-lost sister. Number 4. Do spiders have a spider sense? According to Peter Parker, his most important ability is his spider sense, a sensation he experiences whenever he is in danger. But the big question is this: can spiders instinctively detect danger? Well, in the 2002 film Spider-Man, a scientist explains that certain arachnids have, quote, a set of reflexes with nerve conduction velocities so fast that some researchers believe it borders on precognition. Although this explanation isn't true, arachnids can instinctively tell when they are in danger. At first, you'd assume spiders are pretty nifty at locating predators since they usually have 8 eyes. However, spiders have terrible eyesight. To get around this, they rely on teeny-weeny hairs on their body called trichobothria. These hairs are so sensitive, some spiders can pick up on the movement of an object that is 90 millionth of a millimeter thick. Each of its hairs work individually, allowing the creature to filter out certain sounds to focus on a noise from a potential predator. Number 3. What happened to the spider that bit Peter Parker? Peter Parker obtained his spider powers after he was bitten by an irradiated spider. The same arachnid bit a teenager called Cindy Moon just before it died. Most of Moon's powers are similar to Spider-Man's, and when she met Parker, Moon decided to fight crime with him as the superhero Silk. But Moon wasn't the only person who obtained powers from this spider. While Parker was in high school, he was bullied by a guy called Carl King. King was the only person to witness Parker being bitten by the spider on that fateful trip. One day, King went to Parker's house to set up a prank. As he approached the house, he saw Spider-Man exiting Parker's window. King realized that the arachnid that bit Parker must have given him spider powers. Desiring similar abilities, King went to the lab where Parker got bit and tracked down the spider. Although it was dead, King believed he would obtain superpowers if he ingested the creature. Consuming our 8-legged friend caused King's body to mutate into 1,000 spiders. Each of these critters spewed out of his body to infect and kill others. King, who then called himself the 1,000, was eventually defeated by Spider-Man. I am never getting this image out of my head, am I? Number 2. Why does J. Jonah Jameson really hate Spider-Man? Spidey has saved New York City more than probably any other superhero in the town. He was even nice enough to save the world every once in a while too. Nevertheless, the editor of the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson, hates Spider-Man and is directly responsible for tainting the superhero's public image. No matter who Spider-Man defeats or rescues, Jameson manages to twist the story to paint the webhead as the bad guy. He detests Spidey so much, Jameson has even allied with supervillains to try and kill him. But why? What did Spider-Man ever do to deserve this? Jameson may come across as an unreasonable jerk, but you can understand his motivation when you learn his backstory. When his wife Joan was killed by a masked gunman, Jameson was so traumatized he developed an instant suspicion and mistrust to anyone wearing a mask. This may not justify Jameson's irrational behavior, but it sure does help you understand it just that little bit more. Number 1. What happened to Uncle Ben's murderer? In Spider-Man's debut, a burglar shot Peter Parker's Uncle Ben dead. When Parker tracked down the killer, he realized that he saw him commit a crime weeks ago but chose not to get involved. I missed the part where that's my problem, and so on and so forth. If Parker stopped the man then and there, his uncle would still be alive. The burglar in question is supposedly called Dennis Carradine. Before his encounter with Ben Parker, he was in jail sharing a cell with the mobster Dutch Malone. One night, the burglar overheard Malone mumbling in his sleep how he stashed a fortune in his home in Forest Hills. When the burglar got out of jail, he tracked down the house, which is inhabited by Ben and Mary Parker at the time. When Ben tried to grab him, the burglar panicked and shot him dead. Although Peter Parker turned the criminal over to the authorities, he broke out and tried again to locate Malone's money. When the burglar returned to Peter Parker's house, he attacked Aunt May but was stopped by Spider-Man. The burglar was so shocked by the superhero, he died of a heart attack. Which is what I'm going to do if you show me another picture of that 1,000 spiders guy. Oh god, not again.